one of the DCI officers came out with a roll, with something, and we said we found this behind the TV. And I even held it. I was like, what is it? My friend Uta was like, Pauline, drop it. That's like that's a bland, like it's banging. So, you know, we later came to know that some of those DCI officers they were on duty at Shakahola, and they had been called to leave Shakahola. You remember that is when they were digging the graves. They had been called and told that they needed to come and arrest someone in Watamu. So they thought it was a terrorist or something.
In 2022, you were given a job by the former Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala, and then the appointment was revoked.
Yeah.
Looking back, do you think that was unfair to you?
You know, as we grow older, we become wiser, even in the way we express ourselves, in the way we communicate and articulate issues.
So Pauline Njoroge, welcome to our humble set.
Thank you. This is lovely.
Asante sana. Thank you for taking the time this morning to come and share your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
And people know you online. But who is Pauline Njoroge beyond all this online noise?
At the core, Pauline Njoroge is a village girl. Grew up in the village, went to school in the village. That is Githega Primary School before proceeding to Moi Girls Kamango in Ndeya. Ndeya that time was also quite the village, but right now there's been a lot of progress. And then also got to know or to find my relationship with God at a church in the village where I love to serve. But then I fell in love with Nairobi city and the world. So beyond being a village girl, I've also, you know, I'm also a daughter of Kenya. I'm a daughter of the world. And what people know me for, as you have said, is social media. I'm very passionate about politics and governance, and I love writing about it. I love making commentary about that. And I'm also a PR person, digital PR practitioner, I'd say that. And I run an organization, I run a company, Ebony Analytics Africa, where we merge data and storytelling to shape narratives around different projects, different organizations. And so over time, over the last 14 years, I have worked for political parties, I've worked for governments, I've worked for international governmental organizations, from the Kenyan government to the African Union and other development agencies across the continent. Yes.
And a lot of people know your blogger side and not the PR side. I've heard you actually mention that.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly tell people, Kenyan, some of the projects you've worked on?
Yeah, in recent times, yeah. So as I said, for a long time, I've worked with the government of Kenya, especially during President Uhuru Kenyatta's time, to shape different narratives, especially towards the end of his term, where we were running Uhuru Delivers, going around the country and capturing the work that was going on from Lamu Port to the SGR. Okay, so SGR was already done in the first term, but also, yeah, that was part of our story to, you know, just to put together a story about his legacy projects, the expressway, the hospitals. You know, like the last time it was a lot, Kenya was like a construction site. And so I was actually leading the digital team that managed to package that for our social media audiences. So what you see on social media is an end process of an end of a very long process, starting from research to coverage of projects to production, and now of course social media is where that is the public facing part. But there's a lot that I do behind the scenes to ensure that that information is well packaged for the consumption of Kenyans. And beyond that, I've also worked for the African Union. I started with the African Development Agency, that is AUDA NEPAD. I worked for the NEPAD Kenya Secretariat for 7 years, then now went to the Continental Agency, also still doing PR and communication, but inclined. I've always been on the digital side of things. And my most recent projects, after I left AUD and NEPAD after a while, came back, but after elections, the 2022 elections, I went back. I did a few other projects with them as a consultant now. So the first project was what we call the African Governance Architecture Support Project, which was where I was a consultant for Expertise France, but supporting the governance organs of the African Union, the African Peer Review Mechanism, the African Court, and other institutions that deal with governance at the AU. Again, packaging what they do. You know, many Africans don't know what these organizations, they hear about the AU, but they don't know about the impacts of its organs. So I went there, packaged this information, their mandate, their achievements, what they've been able to do since the establishment over the years, and we packaged that again for social media consumption. That was my first project after 2022, again with the AU. And then after that, I've worked with the AU Special Envoy for food systems, Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki, again to package his work and what he was doing around food systems, and also what the AU is doing around on the issues of agriculture, climate change and food systems around the continent. And I was doing that with AU and AGRA.
And Pauline, Kenya is heading towards general election. What role do you see yourself playing in this?
I think one of the roles will be the one I've always played. With whatever side I support, I bring what I do best, and that is digital communication. So I believe for the side I'm supporting, that is something that I will contribute. That is, I'll support them in that aspect.
Which side are you supporting today?
I'm with the United Opposition.
And as you talk about United Opposition, do you think it will carry the weight with all the ego play and power play that is happening right now?
I would say right now the United Opposition is in its formative stage. And the formative stage, everyone is trying to find their space. These are politicians, and these are men who have served this country in different capacities, you know, big positions. So, you know, there's a lot of, I would not want to call it ego, but that comes into play. Everyone believes, you know, everyone has served this country in a certain capacity. They believe that they are bringing the best, and all of them
have represented their own people.
And everyone is representing their own people, and these are people who have massive followers. They have regional blocs, people who support them. So for them coming to the table and making sacrifices, you know, personal sacrifice, that I'll let this person be, it will not be me. It's a process that takes time, and we've seen that before. For example, leading up to the 2002 elections, there were different camps. There was Shikuku, there was Raila and the group that left KANU. There was, of course, Kibaki and Ngilu and Eugene with their several Ts. You know, they would do a lot of Ts, and the three of them. So, and it's until towards the very last minute that they came together. So. It takes time. It takes time for people to process and to finally come together. So I also see it happening right now. Of course, everyone is trying to consolidate their base, but at one point I think they'll still come together, into one formidable force. And
you campaigned very hard for Honorable Raila Odinga's AU bid, the late.
Yes.
Take us through the whole process. How was that experience for you?
You know, one day Baba called me in an evening. I actually thought it was, when I saw his call, because it was a bit late in the night, it was past 8. So I thought it was like maybe a misdial. So I picked and I was like, how are you doing, Your Excellency? And he told me it's fine. And then he asked me how the following day would be for me, and I told him it's flexible. He told me he would like to see me in the morning. So I went to one of his offices, Joff Center, and he told me that his AU campaign was now about to be officially launched, and he wanted me to come in at that point. And of course I was, I was humbled, and I accepted. And he told me there was a meeting happening at Honorable Mudavadi's office, just to announce that the launch would be happening soon, and he'd want me to join him for that meeting. Actually, when we got outside, I was wondering which car I'm getting into to go with him. And he told me to get into the car with him. And we went to the Prime Cabinet Secretary's office. I was very afraid because all this time I had been in the opposition, I was still fighting government. And now this is me arriving in a government office. And when we arrived, I could see people, you know, exchanging glances, what's going on here. So that's how I joined the campaign. And before even he called me, since he expressed his interest to run for that campaign on social media, I was very excited, and I took to social media long before this day to just champion for his bid. And I had worked, I've told you, I've interacted with the AU for many years, about 10 years. Since 2014, I've interacted with the AU, so I knew a bit about it and why I believed in Baba's bid. There are a lot of good things. There are a lot of good decisions that are made at AU level, agreements that are signed, even countries ratify. But moving them from just decisions that they have signed and ratified to action, to implementation, that is where the problem is. And I thought AU needed someone who is more than a bureaucrat, you know, someone who is more than just having been a foreign minister, someone who could command the goodwill or consolidate the goodwill of heads of state, someone who they could respect, someone they could see as a peer, and they could listen to him, and he would be able to consolidate their goodwill to start now moving some of these things to implementation. We have the African Continental Free Trade Area. And many African countries have ratified, but I'm sure nowadays you don't get to hear much about it. We have the Yamoussoukro decision on African open skies, so that, you know, even movement for, you know, all these decisions that will make movement of people and goods, you know, trade amongst, we have a very large market, 1.5 billion people. A market of 1.5 billion people, but you're not able to trade with each other, because every time a decision is made on how we are going to open our borders and trade with each other, every country is pulling to their side. Every country has its own interest, and you can imagine how it is to make a decision for one country like Kenya. A process that goes, let's say for a bill, it has to go through, before it has to go through parliament, there has to be public participation, and everything. A lot goes on before something even is assented as a law. So now that is for one country. Now imagine 55.
The whole continent,
Imagine 55 countries. So there needs to be a lot of effort to bring these countries together to see the bigger agenda for the continent, instead of each pulling to their side, to know that they stand to benefit more from working together than each working separately. And I saw Baba as someone who could be able, who had the political muscle to be able to push such decisions towards implementation. Yes.
And what do you think went wrong? When you look back from your vantage point, having been on trail, you know, having been in those meetings as an insider, what do you think went wrong in Ethiopia?
The same things I've talked about, where we don't see the common good, where we still allow ourselves to be separated by there's some divisions that have been there since the 1960s, because the colonialists told us, some of you are Anglophones, others are Francophone, others are Lusophone, and that almost became our identity. So even as we go to make decisions as a continent, we see ourselves in those.
A block.
Yes, and I liked what Honorable Raila used to say. We need to start seeing ourselves as Afrophones. We need these divisions. We need to do away with them. So that is what played out. The small geopolitical fights here and there. These identities that, you know, these identities that do not help us at all, these divisive, you know, identities, that is what played out. Yeah, and unfortunately, we lost a moment as a continent. Now look at us. We have to go to the US. Our heads of state have to go to the US to solve domestic issues, because we don't have a body strong enough to resolve.
And actually, saw a Kenyan online commenting that from the photos that were captured, that they were treated like small boys from Africa.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what happens when you cede your power, when you're not able to manage your affairs. I remember President Ruto once said he doesn't like how they go to Western nations, that they're bundled in a bus. And he said that has to stop. And and even said how Africa should be represented using some AU mechanisms, but it continues happening. Yeah, but it's because we've not been able to manage our affairs. One of the aspirations of the agenda, the AU Agenda 2063, is to have global influence as a continent. But how do we have global influence when our institutions are very weak? When the people who lead those institutions may not be able to provide the kind of leadership or to consolidate the kind of goodwill that we need to move forward. Yeah, so I would say AU as it is a bit weak, and it needs strong muscle to move it, and that's why I saw Baba as the person who would fit that role. Yeah.
And having worked with Baba for a while, you got to know him intimately, yeah?
Yes.
When you learnt of his death, how was that experience for you?
I had talked with Baba when rumors started about his health, and some people even speculating that he's in life support machine, others saying he's dead, just waiting for that to be announced. I didn't know. I was not sure what to do because I was like, if I call him and he does not answer, if I call him and I can't reach him, how do I react to that? But actually, I was a bit afraid, but my partner insisted, just call him. And I made a call to him. That was on Wednesday. It must have been the 8th. I called him, and he picked. I was like, oh. And he was like, how are you, my dear? I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm worried. How are you doing? And he told me he's fine. There have been a bit of issues that have been diagnosed, but he's been treated. He's just resting, and will be back in the country the following week. Only to wake up one morning later, the following Wednesday. That was on Wednesday. The following Wednesday, and I'm seeing news. I'm like, no, this cannot be. Like when we talked, he was fine. He even laughed. And I tried to call some of his family members. I couldn't reach them, so I called one of his staff. He didn't pick, but he knew why I was calling him, so he immediately forwarded me a message to confirm that had happened. It was hard. It was very hard, and this is a man I had traveled with around the continent, and not just for this election. When I was working for NEPAD, he was the high rep for infrastructure development, and his role was really under NEPAD. So I would travel. I'll still travel with him for some of his meetings. So this is a man I had, but the AU campaign had really brought us close. I saw him as a father. Like he was as a father, and he would treat us as so. So to imagine that this man was no more, it was very hard. And then it came at a point where I had just come from surgery myself, so I can't even be there for the burial. But we lost. I was like, Africa lost when they didn't vote for him in February, but now, as a country, we've lost, and as a continent, now we have lost permanently.
And Pauline, having worked with the late Raila Odinga, what's that one thing that you learned from him and you choose to stick by today?
Raila Odinga was a man of conviction. If he believed in something, it doesn't what it took, or it doesn't matter how he had to fight. He pursued it to its conclusive end. He was very reflective also on issues. And he's a man you would freely talk to about anything, there are leaders who don't listen. There are leaders who you even fear approaching. But he was very approachable. And even if you told him something that he did not quite agree with, he would listen and then reason out with you. And maybe even reflect and try to see your angle. I remember after the Gen Z protest, then there was this signing at KICC for the NADCO report. And that was the first time he talked about dialogue. I was like, oh, what is this about? So immediately they left KICC. I gave him a call, and I was like, hey, Baba, that word dialogue you've just mentioned, you know, it does not resonate well with the people at this point in time. And he explained to me where he was coming from. He was like, as much as their protest and all this, we need also to listen to each other so that we know what exactly the young people need, what are the timelines, so we must talk. And I went on and on. I wouldn't call it an argument, but we discussed it a bit. But that he could listen to me and my point of view at that very time when things were very heated. And many other times that we've had conversations, not just with me, but I've had him have conversations with other people and people giving different kind of view. And he reflects, he's very reflective. And I've said he's a man of conviction. When he believes in something, he goes all out. That is what I learned from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you've worked in a very emotional space. Politics can be very emotional.
Yeah.
That has led to a lot of consistent bullying online.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that?
At first, it used to bother me when I was starting off, where all these people saying all this mean about me. You know, all I'm doing is expressing my political views. Why should people be mean or even try to bring personal issues? Like when we are talking about maybe an issue, let's even go, maybe we are discussing NADCO, and someone comes and tells me, you don't have children or you need to get married. I used to wonder,
how do those two relate?
How do those two relate? But with time, I got used to it. And I realized people view things differently. Others are going through different things, and social media is where they project. Mm-hmm. And people can also decide to make you, you know, an element of their hate. They can decide to make you a boogeyman. There's nothing you can do about that. You're not in control of that. You're not in control of their feelings or their actions. So the most that you can do is continue doing you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And ask God, like, is it the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, that God give me the courage to accept the things that I cannot change? Yeah, that's my attitude towards social media bullying. It's not right. And I know there are people who really go down because of that. There are people who get very disturbed because of that, of online bullying.
It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to deal with.
It's not an easy thing. And people who bully others, you know, they sit behind the keyboard and they never think, imagine this can happen to them because they are not celebrities. They are not known. Some of them even use pseudos. Okay, there are those who use their names. But they keep doing this because they have no empathy, because they don't feel you. They don't think that you're they don't see you as a human being. They don't humanize you. They don't see you as a mother, as a father, as a sister to someone. They just see you as just an object. And they make you the object of their hate. So, yeah, that's unfortunately, it's very painful, and I wish we could have better conversations on social media where trolling or insults is not what drives people. Okay. But also the algorithms don't help. Okay. Yeah.
You've mentioned that there are pseudos, people attack you using pseudo accounts. Do you think that social media has an impact, or it's just populated by bots and paid armies today?
No, social media has a lot of impact, and it's just a few people that make it look like a negative space. Only that they're a bit loud and they're very bold. You know, the good people tend to be a bit timid and they fear attacks, so they go quiet. You know, there's this saying that when good people keep quiet, or when they're silent, you know, evil prevail. So that's what happens. The bullies are a bit loud, but doesn't mean they are the majority. There's a lot of good that happens on social media. Look at us in 2024, the protest against the finance bill. The mobilization was done on social media, and it achieved a lot of good. Of course, the president did not sign the finance bill. Okay, we don't know what happened after that. They tell us they still found a way to still implement whatever they wanted to implement, but it's a good space. It's a good space for good causes, to mobilize towards good governance, to mobilize towards good social causes. So it's a very powerful space, and where we are headed. Even campaigns, when we started in 2013, I remember I joined the TNA campaign in 2012. Social media was very new. Actually, TNA was the best at it, and I believe we did a good job at it. But now where we are headed as a world, no campaign, no company, no organization can downplay the role of social media. Yeah. See what happens in New York. The new mayor, Mamdani, how he campaigned.
That was a good campaign.
It was a good campaign, and the use of vertical videos, TikTok, the message. He did it very well. I'm also seeing how the White House. I'm looking at how the White House is doing it. They are now very strongly on TikTok.
On TikTok,
yeah. So it's where the world is. We can't change that. So the question should be, how do we use those platforms more positively?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think we should use it more positively? What would you advise?
As I said, we should focus more on doing good. Right now I'm seeing a lot of, I don't know what is happening. These chai masters, the teas and the gossip, you know, we are giving them a lot of airtime instead of using the platform to discuss issues that affect us every day. I'd rather wake up every day to see conversations about what is happening with the Safaricom sale by the government. What's you know, what can we do to plant more trees? You know, what can we do to resolve the issue of our education system or the healthcare that is failing? I wish those were the conversations we were having. And even when we want to have social conversations, there's a lot of good to talk about this country. There is wildlife. People go for safari rally and all manner. Even socially, there are a lot of things that we can talk about. But when we wake up every day, it's chais, it's gossip, it's who insulted. Then it becomes a very toxic space. But we can use it to showcase what we have as a country, and also to address the challenges that we are facing as a nation. Yeah.
Pauline, in 2022, you were given a job by the former Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala, and then the appointment was revoked.
Yeah.
Looking back, do you think that was unfair to you?
He was a Cabinet Secretary then.
Yeah.
There's what he felt about the issues that were raised about my appointment. There's a statement I had made in 2015 about, was it in 2015, around there, about the Nairobi National Park, when we were building when people had gone to court regarding the SGR passing over the park. You know, as we grow older, we become wiser, even in the way we express ourselves, in the way we communicate and articulate issues. I wrote a post. This is what I meant to say, but that is not how it really came out. And I know people took it out of context, and I don't judge. It's how they understood how I wrote it. I would have written it better and articulated it better. But I was talking about the economic value of the park. And when I talk about the economic value of the park, I don't mean that we should build apartments there. No, we should subdivide the land. But yes, we have to address the issue of our city and the population. And then we look at an asset. That park is an asset. How can it be how can it also be part of providing for the needs of Nairobians? Is it being well run economically? Is it making money for us? How is it being managed? We have other parks around the world, not necessarily national parks, but parks like in New York we have Central Park, in London we have Hyde Park. How do they use these parks to generate income for the residents of that city? Some of them are film destinations and other things, but how do we use, how are we using our park? Are we thinking beyond just come and see the animals? Even come see the animals, how are we marketing it so that it's economically viable, it's sustainable, you know, and it's providing for the huge, it's also providing for the huge population of this country and also providing towards our national budget, such sort of thing, yes. But I should have expressed it better at the time. So how I made that statement is regrettable.
Well said, and that's actually powerful when you look back and you decide like this is how I should have communicated it better. And in July 2023, you were arrested in Mombasa. Take us through that moment. You were actually having your holiday with your friends.
Yes.
Take us through that moment. How was that whole process for you?
You know, someone had called me and told me to be careful. You know, people are being arrested. I was like, but I have committed no crime. Like, you know, they had already arrested a few people. I think Babu had already been arrested. And who else? Yeah, and someone was like, just be careful. And I was like, I'm not even a politician, but the exact meaning of that term, I just express my opinions on social media, so I don't think there's anything to fear about, But when we were driving out of a hotel we were at, we were stopped. And I could tell, because we found a car waiting by the roadside. Then when we passed, it followed us and then tried to come and block us. And I was like, yeah, something here is about to go down. And when they stopped us, they came into the car, and my friend Luta, she looks like me, so they thought it was her. They asked for her name, her ID, and then now they realized I was the one. And then they said they wanted to get into the car. They wanted to take us to the police station for some questioning. Okay. At that point, I knew now this thing is happening. And instinctively, I knew they were going to take my phone. So I just sent a message to a group arrested in Watamu. So by the time we got to the station, that message had already, it was already out. And I think God saved us that way, because if I had not sent us that information, I don't know where they would have taken us after that. Maybe they would even have taken us out of Watamu to a place that people didn't know. But now, my friends, the struggle they had the whole of that afternoon is to find out, because of course they took the phones, where in Watamu is she? And then, so we're asking, what crime have we committed? And even them, they look confused. We later came to know that some of those DCI officers they were on duty at Shakahola, and they had been called to leave Shakahola. You remember that is when they were digging the graves. They had been called and told that they needed to come and arrest someone in Watamu. So they thought it was a terrorist or something. So seeing us in our holiday outfit. I can imagine. Yeah, so I could see they were a bit confused. They started asking questions, what are you doing here, whatnot, and then we could see them go outside, make calls, and they told us they needed to go check our rooms in the hotel. Like, do you have a search warrant? No. But they insisted, and now they took us to the hotel. There were like 5 cars. We were wondering what's going on. And then in my room, they said they took my supplements, which they recorded as psychotropic drugs. Then one of the DCI officers came out with a roll, with something, and we said we found this behind the TV. And I even held it. I was like, what is it? My friend Duta was like, Pauline, drop it. That's like that's a blunt, like it's banging. So she was like, no, it will have your fingerprints. But I was innocently, because what is this? And then they also went to my friend, said they had also found psychotropic drugs. They placed a bangi in our car also, the car that we had been using. So all of us, including the driver, we were all arrested. Of course, we knew it was political witch hunt. But the case, at that time, I had a contract with Expertise France for the AU project. And I'm thinking, these are now international organizations. What will they think about me and these cases? This is now not just my life, but this is also my career at stake, and my friend also. So, yeah, we were booked in. The following day, our friends mobilized, and lawyers came, and thank God for the former president, who said he's going to take care of the Uhuru, of the legal fees. So we get the best lawyers and all. And they came, and on Monday morning we expected to be, so that was on Saturday, Sunday we are still there. On Monday morning we expected to be produced in court. It takes so long, so my lawyers go apply for us to be produced in court. Finally we are in court, and there's nothing about the psychotropic drugs or the banking. Now this time around they are talking about hate speech against the head of state. But that case collapsed very fast, because with time they had no evidence, so it couldn't hold. Yeah.
And Pauline, we've seen people die in police cells. Some disappear for a few days before they appear. Yeah. When all this was happening, it must have been a scary moment for you and your friend.
Actually, my friend always says it's good that she was there with me, because if I was alone, I'm a woman in that cell, what could have happened? And when we have seen now cases of people dying in cells, and then we are being told stories that they bang their head on the wall, you know, you just look back and thank God that you were dealing with police officers that were humane at the time, because it can really get, especially when they know they don't have evidence against you, but they still want to prove a point. They can go to any extent. Yeah, to get rid of you. So we were lucky that we came out alive and well.
Okay.
Yeah. But we feared. At one point, our friends told us not to eat anything that they are providing. We wait for them to bring food especially because we knew we would be charged with drugs. We don't know. We thought they were going to lace our food. Yeah, so that they have evidence. When we are tested, they have evidence that we were consuming.
Were you allowed to contact your friends or have access to them?
I was allowed to call a lawyer.
Okay.
Yes, and then the lawyer now was able to inform my friends where I was, yes, including my dad.
Okay. Did that whole experience change your perception of power and vulnerability?
Oh yes, it did, in a big way. I started seeing some things a bit differently. You know, and I would want to say to those people in power, it's not forever, it's temporary. And why it's good to always follow the law. Don't take advantage of the power you have to mistreat people. Because when you open that door, when you start using, you know, using unlawful means, illegal means to suppress voices that are against you, you know, to suppress dissent, to suppress people that are do not agree with your decisions. One day it will be you on the other side, because we say the opposition in the government is the government in waiting. So things keep changing. It can be you on the other side next time. And if you have opened that door, that dangerous door, who tells you that what you have started will not be used against you? So I see things objectively, and I'm like, no matter what happens, no matter the kind of power that you have, just don't misuse it. Yeah, because next time it could be you.
Okay, and Pauline, you've worked with Azimio, Jubilee, and other politicians in Kenya. What has this taught you about loyalty and political survival? You survive as long as you're giving them some value. I believe that's the first step to survive, you know. Give them some value. You know, there are people who call politicians and say, I want to be part of your campaign. Then they ask, okay, how do you want to be part of the campaign? Just give me something to do in the campaign. But I learned a long time ago, it should always be, there's this thing that I can offer in your campaign. And when they see value, then you're able to survive in that system for long. But working with politicians and working at certain levels, you may imagine you're very powerful. But that is not your power. It belongs to someone else. And that is something that you must always remember. That power does not belong to you. The day it gets into your head, then you start crossing lines. Then you start thinking you're too valuable and indispensable. Then that is the beginning of your fall. So I'll say, get there, know your place, and know the value that you have to add. Yes, but also be firm. Put your foot down. I remember there's someone I worked with, someone very known in this country, in the political science and communication space. And with time we disagree. That is in 2022. We would disagree a lot because as much as I'm in politics, I have my values. I think there's an extent that we should never go to. For example, if I'm going to fight someone by saying that they're sleeping with so-and-so, how does that add political value to me? So I would like, no, that narrative is not something that I can run. So I have also learned to put my foot down. If I don't agree with something, it doesn't matter how senior you are. If I don't believe in something, if I don't believe that is a door we should not open, I put my foot down and I refuse when I know my heart is right about something. Okay.
Yeah. So putting your foot down is also something important, because if you're in the presence of power, you may just be swayed to do anything. So that's something also, you have to know what your values are and you have to know where you draw the line. Yeah.
And Pauline, as an insider, what's that one thing that political influencers and communicators are doing wrong today in terms of messaging?
You know, and we all learn. It's a process. As you mature, you learn. As I said, as you mature, you better know how to articulate your issues. But political influencer, sometimes I find that I'm insulting you because of the person you support. And I believe that by doing so, I'm advancing the agenda of my candidate. But I'm like, no, you are a supporter of someone else, just like I'm a supporter of someone else. Can we debate on issues? Can we debate on what I feel is wrong on your side, or can we debate on what you feel is going wrong on my side? So the day we learn to have very mature discourses,
Yeah.
then that changes, and people even start seeing our candidates differently. But if all we do is insult others on behalf of our candidates, then that's how we paint them also as, people who have nothing much to offer beyond, some.
And as we head towards the general election, what's that one thing that is creating tension in Kenya today, and we are refusing to deal with it?
You know, hard-headedness among our politicians. We really refuse to listen. We refuse to listen to what people are saying. We refuse because, and I keep saying, when we are in power, whether you are in opposition but you have power, or in your government you have power, you tend to think you know it all and people are on the wrong. But if we don't pause it, and how we got there in 2024 during the finance bill, actually it stemmed from that we completely refused to say to what people, we refused to listen to what people were saying until we saw, but even when we saw them in the streets, we were like, no, they are wrong. Okay, I was on the other side, I was at the side of the protest, but those in power were like, no, they are wrong and we are right. And that is even why we'll go and pass this bill in parliament, until things almost got out of proportion because those in power were not listening. And I think even now, both sides need to listen to the people. There's the opposition side, people are asking them, what do you have to offer? Beyond saying this and this, what do you have to offer? And for the government side, why are you doing this? What is happening to the health sector? What is happening to the education sector? Why are you not listening to us? So I would say, as we head to 2027, both sides, the opposition and the government side, they need to listen to what people are saying. Yes.
Pauline, are you going to vie for a political post?
Yes, I will. I will. You know, growing up, like every other person, I had a dream. I remember when I was in high school, other students used to call me future Githunguri MP. But when I interacted with politics, after I joined politics and I interacted with it, I got scared because I had a very romantic idea about politics, and I would go to parliament. I loved going to parliaments, watching debates, and back then we had very good debaters. We had very solid parliamentarians. Unfortunately, we've been retrogressing because nowadays we look at who is a child of a single mother who went to school without shoes. That is how we judge our politicians, or who best suits leadership. But then we had very solid people, so I loved the debates. And I remember also carrying a small radio to school. It was illegal, but I needed to carry that to be listening to Crossfire.
Okay.
Patrick Kwako, Tony Gashoka, Muhisa Kitui, not Muhisa, yeah, it was Muhisa Kitui, and then there was also Mutula Kilonzo. I loved those debates. I loved the discourse, the national discourses they would have, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to be part of. But yes, after I joined politics, I was like, no, I don't like this thing. I want to work behind the scenes, but going to the people, you know, the culture of handouts that we have, that unless you give money to people, they will not listen to you, or they will not value your leadership or whatever you are saying. It's really chaotic, and I feared. And I pulled down, and I was like, yeah, this dream, no, I have to, yeah. But also, as I've said, I've had dreams. I've traveled the world. Over the last 11 years, I can say I've traveled the world. I've seen a lot. Visited major cities around the world. Major cities with very huge populations, but they are well managed. There is clean water. Actually, people take water from the taps. You know, you just take water directly from the tap. They are well managed. The cities are clean, they are orderly. In the, when you talk about even the underground, where people go to catch the metro, it's safe. You can catch the metro any time of day or night. It's the security. And I keep wondering, these cities that are so well organized, so orderly, the social amenities are well provided for, and they run by human beings like us. And the people who live there and don't go littering and they know how to live, rather disciplined, and they also not human beings like us. What is wrong with us? Why is our city the way it is? Actually, when I look at the photos from the 1960s, shortly before pre-independence and post-independence, the few years, Nairobi was a very clean city, orderly, pavements, large pavements and all. Why are we retrogressing? What is happening to us? And then, of course, with devolution, you expect now the city has money to run. Things will work out well. But I realize we will never be able to run our counties, or even, I'm very passionate about the city of Nairobi specifically. As I told you now, I'm a city girl, I'm a Nairobi girl. Mm-hmm. Until the day we start seeing counties and our county of Nairobi as a service delivery unit, as a service delivery unit, this county exists to meet the service, to deliver services to the people. Until we start seeing it from that perspective, nothing much is going to change. We'll continue retrogressing instead of building better. Because of my interactions with the AU, I've been going to Addis for the last 10 years. And the first time I went there, it was a dingy place. I don't know whether I don't know what your experience of Addis is. It used to be a dingy place, like a slum. And then you go now and you're wondering, you land there and you're like, oh, hold on. Is this Addis or have I landed in a different place? There has been political goodwill to change that place, to clean up the streets, to beautify the place, to clean up, to have better buildings and all that. Political goodwill. That is what has turned Addis to what it is today, in a very short time. Yeah. So in Nairobi, if we start focusing on what do we need to provide for the people, what do people need, for example, we have about 1,200 health clinics. What do those health clinics need? What services do people need from those health clinics? How do we equip them? If it's water and sanitation, how do we provide water to our people? Let me say this. When you don't provide water and sanitation, because you want to sell water to people, yet there are resources to provide that water in a way that is effective and sufficient. So if you don't provide water, a family gets cholera. So the mother and father do not go to work. Yeah. And these are people who earn daily. They are on wages. So if they don't go to work, then they don't earn that day. Then the little they have, they have to use it for the hospital, to take the family to hospital. And then you know how our health sector is. The insurance, even the national health insurance is not working effectively. So you have denied that person their daily wage. And then on top of that, you have taken the little they have. What are you doing to them? You are keeping them in a cycle of poverty forever. Yet we have enough resources in this city to provide services to our people, to provide security to our people. There's a tunnel that is being built from the Green Park terminus closer to the CBD. Yeah. And that is a good thing. We are building a tunnel so that people don't have to encounter traffic. The pedestrians do not have to encounter traffic when walking to town. It's just a smooth way through. But now I saw people saying, kama tunapigwa ngeta huku juu, tukipitia huko chini, kutaenda aje? The people have lost trust, even for the government and even for the county government to provide security for them, because the city management is not thinking, what services do we need to provide for these people? How can we make it better for them? And so even when projects are undertaken by the counties, they're not geared towards providing services to the people. They're not addressing what the concerns of the people. They're addressing what the vendors need. We need to do this project because we are going to make this amount of money. from it. Not we are going to use to do this project because then our hospitals will be better equipped. We are going to do this project so that the Nairobians can get enough water. We are going to do this project so that we can meet in this. No, it's about you're going to do these projects because you're going to make a lot of money from it. So I'll say Nairobi needs a new plan, because the plan that currently exists, or whatever those in power imagine is the plan, is not working for the people. High work.
And you've really advocated.
So we need a new plan for Nairobi, and a plan that is people focused and service delivery focused. And I want to be part of a team that actually delivers that plan, that new plan for Nairobi. Yeah.
Are you going to buy Nairobi?
Yes, I'm going to buy in Nairobi.
Okay, which post?
I'll communicate that in due time.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll wait for you to communicate that.
Yes, very soon.
Okay, sawa. And you have this immense love for history. What pushed you towards, history and what pushed you towards history?
Everyone who aspires for greatness, or who aspires to be a leader, has something for history, or some love for history. And Baba used to love history a lot. And I'll say history teaches us a lot, especially in leadership, in governance, and that is my area of passion. Because they say, we are told that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat. So I love history. I travel a lot just to learn. And one of my favorite empires, I love the history of empires, the history of churches and cathedrals. And one of my favorite empires, of course, is the Roman Empire. And as a leader, I look at different emperors who ruled Rome. Some very great emperors and leaders who built this massive empire that spread through half of the known world then, with strong institutions, including a strong Senate. And we are talking of a strong Senate 2,000 or more than 2,000 years ago. I admire those leaders, military leaders like Julius Caesar, emperors like Aurelius or Augustus and Trajan, who made Rome what it was, who built these strong institutions, who expanded the empire, who fought wars, battles, and won. But in the same empire, we have guys like emperors like Caligula or Nero, or Commodus, guys who are more interested in entertainment, gladiator fights, than actually governing.
And a lot of passion.
Yes, they were into entertainment and to orgies. They hired uneducated people as advisors. History has a way of repeating itself. and they broke the institutions that had made Rome what it was. They broke the Senate because they wanted sycophants. They wanted fun. They were not interested in governing. And so there's a lot to learn from those two sets of leaders. And then you ask yourself, what kind? If I was to be categorized, where would I want to be categorized? If I was to get into leadership, do I want to be seen as Nero, who went burning Christians because he needed a scapegoat for his weaknesses, or do you want to become like Augustus or Trojan or those great leaders? So it gives me perspective. Just reading through history, reading through books about different leaders, different rulers, it gives me a perspective on the kind of a leader that I would want to become, and the kind of leadership I also would want to see for my country.
So, and Pauline, as a young person, how do you mobilize young people who are experiencing the same challenges that you are to come out and actually vote?
First of all, as leaders, we need to give them a reason to come out and vote. But also for them, they need to realize if they don't come out and vote, nothing changes. If they don't provide an option from amongst them, that this is the kind of a person you want to see, and this is the kind of a person that we are going to support, then they'll always remain with these options that they don't like. So there's a place of the leadership to inspire these people, to give them a message, a reason to come out and vote. But also it's in their place. I told you, I was scared of going into politics because it was this thing that it looks very chaotic. But then I asked myself, if I don't present myself and keep complaining, what do I change? So even these young people, they have to present themselves for positions. As frustrating as it is, change does not come in a day. But you have to take that you have to take that first step of faith, even when you don't see the rest of the staircase. Then we continue building progressively. Yes.